Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to look at geometric sequences in series. So geometric sequences in series are series that multiply or divide. So it's a little bit different than last lesson because we're no longer adding and subtracting, we're multiplying and dividing. Instead of having a common difference, we'll call it a common ratio. And this will give the letter R. Okay, geometric means, again, will be those blanks in between. And a series, the difference between a sequence and a series is separated by commas. A series, each value combines with the previous to give us like a sum or something like that. So let's look at our first example. It says determine the common ratio and find the next three terms. So as you notice, it looks like this is increasing by 15 if it was arithmetic. But the problem is if we try to increase this one by 15, we would not get this value. So it's not an arithmetic sequence. So we're going to guess it's geometric. The way to determine is you take the second term and you're going to divide it by the previous term. So if we took 9 and divided by -6, we would get -1.5. Now if this is geometric, then the next term needs to be the same. So we take our third term, which is -13.5, and we divide that by the second term, which is 9. This also is -1.5. So it is, in fact, geometric. So we already know that our R is -1.5. That's called the common ratio. And so that was part of the answer that it wanted us to find. It said find your common ratio. And then it said find the next three terms. So what I'll do is I'll multiply each of these terms by -1.5. So my next term would be -13.5 times -1.5. And I'll use the calculator to help me out here. So we'd have -13.5, and we're going to multiply this. What happened here? -13.5, and we're going to multiply this by -1.5. Okay, and then we'll do it again. So this is the first term let's see, we have 1, 2, 3. So this would be the fourth term here. And if we wanted to find the fifth term, I would multiply it by -1.5. And if I wanted to find the sixth and final term, I would multiply this again by -1.5. And so these would be my terms. So we would have 20.25 and then -30.375. And finally, 45.5625. And again, this is a sequence because all these terms are separated by commas. They're not adding and subtracting with one another. So those would be those values. Let's try another one. It says here determine the common ratio of the next three terms of the geometric sequence. Now this one's a little bit trickier because we have each term is actually made up of two terms. So we're going to ask ourselves what happens to get from here to there. Again, you would take the second and divide it by the first. So I'd have -81n plus 243. What I'm looking at is dividing it by 243n minus 729. Now the easiest thing to do here is to see that there's a GCF all the way across. And that is if I take out a -81 here, what I'm left with is n minus 3 up top. And on the bottom, if I took out a -81, I'm left with -3n plus 9. Okay, now these parts simplify. And now let's see what we can do. We have n minus 3 over, and see this also has a GCF. If I take out a -3, I'm left with n minus 3. And now I can finally see that if I wanted to cancel this, these two factors out, they would go away, and I'm left with -1/3. So each time what's happening is you could look at it as being divided, or you could say being multiplied by -1/3. This is my R here. Okay, and I got that by reducing. Now you could just kind of look at it and see, especially as you get through here, you can see that every time it looks like we're getting divided by 3, or -3, excuse me, for each value. So if I wanted to find the next three terms, I would take that 27n minus 81, and you could think of it as multiplying by negative 1/3 or by dividing by negative 3. So if I divided that by negative 3, the first term I would have is negative 9n, and this would become plus 27. And then when I multiply this by negative 3, divide it by negative 3, I would get 3n minus 9, and then one more time. Divide that by negative 3, and I would get negative n plus 3. These would be my next terms here. Now here's one for you to try. See if you can determine what the next three terms would be, as well as what your common ratio is.